Regions in Russia came under attack by Ukrainian drones overnight, 7 regions across the country.
Targeted strike on Russia's energy infrastructure. This time, it has struck a key facility, the Druzhba oil pipeline, one of the largest crude oil facilities in the world.
Russian air defense forces have shot down Ukrainian drones targeting the north of the Rostov.
In the span of just 12 hours, Russia lost more military assets than most countries possess in their entire arsenal. $3 billion worth of warships, aircraft, infrastructure, and strategic resources gone. Not in months of grinding attrition, not through negotiated surrender, in one coordinated strike that redefined modern warfare. And here's what makes it absolutely terrifying from a military strategy perspective. Russia never saw it coming. Their radar screens showed threats in all the wrong places. Their interceptors chased ghosts in the sky. Their defenses fired at shadows while the real attack slipped through invisible corridors they didn't know existed. This wasn't just a successful military operation, it was a masterclass in deception so sophisticated that Russian commanders are still trying to understand what happened. 2 simultaneous attacks, hundreds of miles apart, executed with such precision that they looked choreographed. One turned a fortified naval port into a graveyard of burning steel. The other severed a major oil pipeline practically on Moscow's doorstep. Both operations succeeded because Ukraine didn't fight the battle Russia was prepared for. They created an entirely different battlefield, one where technology, deception, and surgical timing mattered more than raw firepower. What unfolded represents a watershed moment in military history, the kind of operation that gets studied in war colleges for generations. And the details are absolutely jaw-dropping. The naval port that became a death trap. At 5:47 in the morning, Feodosia Naval Harbor in Crimea looked like any other strategic Russian port, heavily defended, operationally critical, and seemingly untouchable. Russian forces held every advantage. 2 Project 21,631 Bayan-M corvettes, each worth approximately $60 million, sat anchored with full defensive capabilities. MiG-31 interceptors, valued at $40 million each, maintained air superiority overhead. The port's integrated defense network combined coastal batteries, mine belts, and close-in weapon systems designed to obliterate anything that approached. Russian commanders felt secure. They shouldn't have, because what looked like a routine morning was about to become the most expensive few hours in Russian naval history. The attack began not with missiles or torpedoes, but with something far more insidious: electronic deception. Ukrainian Su-27 jets created an electromagnetic screen using radar decoys, essentially blinding Russian coastal defenses. To Russian radar operators, the screen suddenly filled with dozens of apparent threats, all demanding immediate attention. While Russian systems frantically tried to track and engage these phantom targets, the real attack unfolded in multiple dimensions simultaneously. When deception becomes a weapon, the beauty of Ukraine's strategy wasn't in overwhelming force, it was in orchestrating chaos. While Russian radars chased decoys, Ukrainian forces launched a cascade of interlocking attacks. Scalp cruise missiles streaked toward high-value command and control centers. UJ-22 drones established persistent surveillance across the entire operational area, creating a real-time battlefield map. Geyser-M-class boats, small and agile, approached the harbor's defensive mine belts. Here's where things got ingenious. Instead of trying to physically clear the mines, Ukrainian forces electronically jammed their detonation mechanisms. The mines remained in place, physically intact, but electronically neutered. Corridors opened through the minefield without a single explosion alerting Russian defenders. With Russian crews still focused on the aerial decoys and their radar network compromised, Ukrainian Neptune missile systems targeted the exposed corvettes. The operational design was surgical. Each element created conditions for the next. Decoys drew attention away from real threats. Drones identified gaps and disrupted defenses. Cruise missiles decapitated command and control nodes. Small, fast naval craft exploited the resulting chaos. In under 10 minutes, the tactical initiative swung completely from Russia to Ukraine, transforming a defensive position into a multi-domain assault that Russian forces couldn't coordinate a response against. The harbor becomes a kill zone. With Russian radar networks still reeling, the next phase commenced with brutal efficiency. A wave of unmanned surface vessels advanced from less than 2 miles away. These low-profile craft navigated through darkness and turbulent water, guided by continuous data streams from the drone network above. Their compact jet drives created minimal wakes, allowing them to slip through the minefield gaps cleared moments earlier. Each unmanned vessel carried precision-shaped charges designed not to sink targets, but to disable them permanently. This tactical choice was calculated. Damaged ships that couldn't be towed to repair yards became long-term obstructions within the harbor itself, blocking operational capacity for months. Inside the breakwater, the surviving B&M corvettes attempted defense with their Kashtan close-in weapon systems, but their tracking radars remained compromised by lingering electromagnetic interference from the Su-27 decoys. The result was chaos. 30mm cannons fired erratically into the water, unable to track the approaching unmanned vehicles. The nimble craft closed the distance and struck corvette hulls and propeller shafts with devastating precision. Massive fireballs erupted across the smoke-filled anchorage as fuel ignited, and secondary explosions rippled through the vessels. Desperation and cascading failure. Russian commanders scrambled to regain control, attempting to deploy unmanned underwater vehicles for emergency mine clearance. Ukrainian electronic warfare nodes mounted on fast assault craft immediately jammed their guidance signals, freezing them in the water like paralyzed fish. Attempts to reposition MiG-31 air cover only compounded the confusion as UJ-22 drones continued feeding false radar echoes, drawing interceptors away from the actual engagement zone. The result was a cascading series of detonations. Fuel slicks ignited across the harbor surface. Pierside infrastructure collapsed as cranes toppled. Meanwhile, Ukrainian Geyser M gunboats maintained standoff positions, directing follow-up unmanned vehicle runs with clinical precision. Within 15 minutes, Feodosia's outer harbor transformed from a fortified military installation into a kill zone of wrecked steel and burning fuel. The initiative seized offshore had translated into complete control of the sea approaches, but Ukraine wasn't finished, striking the economic heart. Building on the harbor's success, Ukrainian air elements shifted focus to infrastructure targets. Su-27 squadrons synchronized with standoff Scalp cruise missile launches, targeting oil depots, fuel storage tanks, and reinforced command bunkers. The explosions severed electricity and communication links across the naval base, leaving Russian forces isolated and unable to coordinate responses. Russian batteries launched Kaliber cruise missiles towards suspected Ukrainian positions in a fierce but disorganized counterattack. Naval crews attempted to tow damaged vessels to safety, while Kashtan weapon systems provided desperate defensive fire. But Ukraine's persistent surveillance and electronic warfare network remained the decisive factor. The UJ-22 drone network continuously shifted communication frequencies to evade Russian tracking, while simultaneously mapping trajectories of incoming Kaliber missiles. This targeting data flowed to counterfire units in real time. Ukrainian jamming capabilities forced many Russian missiles to lose their locks, sending them veering off course into the sea. With the Russian counterattack blunted, Ukrainian forces moved to completely lock down the harbor. Gunboats and unmanned surface vessels sealed every exit while Neptune missile systems loitered offshore, ready to engage any vessel attempting to break out. The final phase targeted Feodosia's logistical infrastructure. Guided by live drone imagery, Scalp missiles hit critical targets, fuel depots, railway junctions, submarine pens. The massive secondary explosions guaranteed that Russian resupply lines through the Black Sea would remain severed for weeks. As dawn broke, the scale of devastation became clear. A fortified naval port had been turned inside out in less than 3 hours. Moscow's doorstep burns. But an even more audacious operation was unfolding simultaneously 70 miles south of Moscow. At 2:17 in the morning, thick fog enveloped a critical section of the Tula-Moscow oil pipeline, a strategic asset valued at over $3 billion. 6 Russian K-52 Alligator attack helicopters emerged from low cloud cover, firing unguided rockets at what their intelligence assessed as a Ukrainian reconnaissance team. They were actually targeting sensor decoys. This was the opening move in an operation aimed at severing a primary fuel artery for Russia's western front. The Ukrainian plan began not with direct strikes but elaborate deception. At 3:05 a.m., a formation of Mugen 5 decoy drones, crude plywood airframes with deliberately loud rotors, launched high above the Tula corridor. They were designed to be slow, noisy, and obvious, presenting unmissable targets for Russian air defense radar. Pantsir S-1 air defense units immediately locked onto the decoys as anticipated. While Russian attention focused skyward, the real operation proceeded in silence on the ground. The ground game. Along a 6-mile stretch, low-profile Ukrainian mining robots crept through pipeline access channels, planting directional charges and smart mines at reinforced junctions. Simultaneously, in forests west of Serpukhov, Vilka-M rocket launchers escorted by robotic logistics units maneuvered into pre-plotted firing positions along remote forest roads. With electronic and subterranean elements in place, the ground phase began. At 4:10 a.m., a spearhead of T-84 main battle tanks flanked by BTR-4E infantry carriers advanced on Checkpoint 22, a hardened Russian outpost guarding a critical pipeline pressure segment. This was a feint. As tanks engaged the outpost's defenders, drawing their fire, Ukrainian motorized infantry teams on modified motorcycles slipped into the tree line. They executed a wide flanking maneuver through an abandoned industrial area, arriving at a camouflaged logistics depot. By 4:40 a.m., they had breached the facility, planted thermite charges, and neutralized the garrison, severing the local resupply line before Russian commanders realized what was happening. The air battle nobody saw. At 5:45 a.m., the battle escalated into the air with breathtaking audacity. Two Ukrainian MiG-29's fighters acting as decoys flew low and fast with afterburners engaged, immediately drawing attention from Russian S-400 air defense batteries and Nebo-M tracking arrays. As Russian interceptors scrambled, a pair of Ukrainian Su-30 multi-role fighters flew nap of the earth at just 200 feet, moving in undetected. Armed with Kh-31P anti-radiation missiles, they locked onto emissions from two forward Nebo-M radar arrays and destroyed them moments later. Russian S-400 systems reacted, launching interceptor missiles, but a Ukrainian Borisogledsk electronic warfare vehicle activated, flooding the area with GPS noise and radar spoofing signals. The S-400 tracking data faltered. In a daring maneuver, one decoy MiG-29 executed a sudden dive, dropping flares and disappearing below the radar horizon, causing the incoming interceptor to miss. This created a temporary but critical breach in Russia's air defense shield. Through this breach, a wave of FPV drones surged forward, no longer tracked by radar, heading directly for the pipeline. The final strike. The final act executed with surgical precision. At 6:02 a.m., from a disguised panel van positioned miles away, two fiber optic guided drones launched. The first served as a final decoy, drawing fire toward a secondary fuel depot. 30 seconds later, the second drone launched, tethered by a hair-thin fiber optic line and guided by an operator watching a thermal feed. At 6:07 a.m., the drone reached its target, a vulnerable junction where two high-pressure pipeline arms met. The operator guided it to 20 feet and initiated impact. The shaped charge detonated dead center. High-pressure fuel aerosolized and ignited instantly, creating a 300-foot fireball that lit up the dawn sky. The shockwave ruptured over 600 feet of pipeline, creating a torrent of fire visible for miles. Within minutes, Russia dispatched elements of the 76th VDV Airborne Brigade to secure the breach, but as they advanced, a pre-planted mine detonated, destroying a bridge and cutting off their retreat. Trapped between Ukrainian infantry and the burning pipeline, the VDV found themselves in a kill zone, targeted by suicide drones and mortar fire while their communications jammed. Yet Ukrainian forces didn't press for annihilation. They held the perimeter, signaling the ground was off limits, then executed a coordinated withdrawal. Their mission wasn't holding territory, but inflicting maximum logistical damage. By 7:20 a.m., a vital artery valued at $3 billion had been severed, creating immediate fuel shortages that stalled Russian tank battalions and supply convoys for over 72 hours. Two operations, executed simultaneously hundreds of miles apart, demonstrated something profound about modern warfare. Victory doesn't always go to the side with the most firepower. It goes to the side that can orchestrate complexity, exploit technology, and turn an opponent's strengths into fatal vulnerabilities. Russia prepared for conventional warfare. Ukraine delivered something else entirely, a chess match played across multiple dimensions simultaneously, where every move created conditions for the next, and where deception mattered as much as destruction. The $3 billion in losses represents more than equipment and infrastructure. It represents a fundamental shift in how wars get fought in the 21st century, and Russia is still trying to figure out what hit them.